The stagecoach kicked up dust across the rugged New Mexico territory, as Sophia Harper clutched her single valise with trembling fingers. It was 1882, and she'd traveled over 1,000 miles from Boston to marry a man she'd never met, a decision that had cost her nearly everything she'd ever known. The conductor called out "Tucumcari" as the coach lurched to a halt, and Sophia drew a steadying breath. There was no turning back now. As she stepped down onto the dusty Main Street, her navy traveling dress already collecting a fine layer of frontier dirt, Sophia tried to appear composed despite her racing heart. Tucumcari wasn't much to look at, a collection of wooden buildings stretched along a single street, with the occasional adobe structure breaking up the monotony. The scent of livestock, leather, and whiskey hung in the air, so different from Boston's refined neighborhoods. "Miss Harper." A gruff voice called from her left. Sophia turned to see a weathered man with a thick mustache and a deputy's badge. "Yes, that's me. Sheriff sent me to escort you to the Ross place. Name's Deputy Miller." He took her valise without ceremony. "Follow me, madam." As they walked, Sophia felt eyes following her. Whispers drifted on the breeze. Words like mail order and desperate reached her ears. "That's her, the male bride for Ross," a woman in a gingham dress asked loudly enough to be heard. "Poor girl must be desperate to answer an advertisement," another replied. "Can't imagine what kind of woman has to buy herself a husband." Heat rushed to Sophia's cheeks as she kept her gaze firmly on the packed earth beneath her feet. In Boston, her family's sudden financial ruin after her father's death had left her with limited options. Becoming a mail-order bride had seemed practical, even adventurous. Now, beneath the judgmental stares of the townspeople, it felt shameful. The deputy led her to a modest building with a wooden sign reading Ross General Store. A small crowd had gathered, watching her with undisguised curiosity. "Here she is, folks," Deputy Miller announced with unnecessary volume. "The mail-order bride from back east." The resulting titters and outright laughter made Sophia want to disappear into the ground. A woman with iron-gray hair stepped forward. "Well, aren't you just a delicate thing? You won't last a week out here, dear." She looked Sophia up and down with a critical eye. "Certainly not what I'd expected for our Russell." The crowd's laughter grew louder and someone called out, "Hope you didn't pay too much for her, Ross." Sophia clutched her reticule tightly, willing herself not to cry. This was a mistake. Everything about this journey had been a terrible mistake. Then the crowd parted, and a tall man stepped out from the general store. He wore a simple blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal sun-bronzed forearms, dusty trousers, and a worn leather vest. No gun belt, she noticed immediately. His sandy hair was cut neatly, and his jaw was clean-shaven, unusual for the frontier men she'd seen so far. But it was his eyes that captured her attention, a deep blue that regarded her with unexpected kindness. "That's enough," he said, his voice quiet but carrying authority that instantly silenced the crowd. He stepped forward and extended his hand to Sophia. "Miss Harper, I'm Russell Ross. Welcome to Tucumcari." The crowd continued to murmur, and one of the men laughed outright. "Russ, you could have done better than sending away for some city girl. Mary Jenkins has been sweet on you for years." Russell turned to face the crowd, his expression hardening slightly. "Miss Harper has shown more courage in coming here than most of you have shown your entire lives." Then he looked back at Sophia, and his stern expression melted into a gentle smile. "They can laugh all they want," he said softly, for her ears alone. "You are the only one I need." Those simple words, spoken with such sincerity, steadied her. Sophia found herself smiling back, relief flooding through her. "Let's get you settled," Russell said, taking her valise from the deputy. You must be exhausted from your journey." As Russell guided her into the store, his hand respectfully at her elbow, Sophia sensed that perhaps, just perhaps, she hadn't made a mistake after all. The general store was surprisingly spacious, with shelves stocked with everything from dry goods to tools. A small counter held a ledger and a jar of candy sticks. The scents of coffee, leather, and tobacco mingled pleasantly. "I live in rooms behind the store," Russell explained, leading her through a doorway at the back. "I've prepared a separate room for you, of course. We won't share quarters until— well, until we're properly married, if that's what you decide." Sophia's eyebrows rose. "If I decide—" Russell set her valise down in a small but clean bedroom. "Miss Harper, I know this arrangement is unusual, but I want you to know that I consider our correspondence a beginning, not a binding contract. You should have time to decide if Tucumcari and I are what you want." His consideration took her by surprise. The letters they'd exchanged over the past 6 months had revealed a thoughtful, intelligent man, but she'd still feared what she might find upon arrival. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Ross." "Russell, please." He smiled, and tiny crinkles appeared at the corners of his eyes. "There's a washroom through that door. I'll leave you to freshen up. When you're ready, I thought we might have supper and talk properly." After he left, Sophia sank onto the narrow bed and released a long, shaky breath. The room was simple but comfortable: a small dresser, a mirror, a washstand with fresh water, and a vase of wildflowers on the windowsill. It was the flowers that finally brought tears to her eyes, evidence that Russell Ross had thought about making her feel welcome. She washed the travel dust from her face and hands, and changed into her second-best dress, a deep green that brought out the hazel of her eyes. Her chestnut hair had come loose during the journey, so she repinned it into a simpler style than she would have worn in Boston. When she emerged, Russell was waiting in the small sitting room adjacent to the kitchen. A modest table was set with actual china plates and cloth napkins. "You look refreshed," he said, standing as she entered. "I hope you're hungry, Mrs. Alvarez. She runs the cantina down the street, sent over her special chicken stew when she heard you were arriving today." That was kind of her, especially considering the welcome I received from the others. Russell's expression darkened. "I apologize for that. Small towns can be judgmental places." "Is that why you advertised for a wife instead of courting someone local?" Sophia asked before she could stop herself. To her surprise, he laughed. "Direct, aren't you? I appreciate that." He pulled out her chair. "The truth is, Tucumcari has few unmarried women my age and those who are available." He paused. "Let's just say we wouldn't suit. I wanted someone with education, someone who could help with the accounts and correspondence, someone interested in books and ideas." "And you thought you'd find that in a mail-order bride?" "I thought I'd find that in you," he corrected gently. "Your letters revealed an intelligent, thoughtful woman with courage and practical sense." Sophia felt herself blushing. "You mentioned books. Do you read much, Mr. Ross?" "Russell," he reminded her. "And yes, whenever I can. My small library is my pride and joy." He gestured toward a bookcase in the corner filled with leather-bound volumes. "Do you play chess by chance?" "I do," Sophia admitted. "My father taught me. He said it would sharpen my mind." Russell's smile widened. "Then we'll have to play sometime. For now, let's eat before the stew gets cold." Over dinner, they spoke of practical matters: the store's operation, the town's rhythms, what would be expected of Sophia should she choose to stay. Russell was forthright about the challenges of frontier life, but also spoke with genuine affection for Tucumcari and its inhabitants. "Despite today's reception, they're good people at heart," he insisted. "They'll come around once they know you. You sound very certain." "I am." He refilled her water glass. It's hard not to like someone who quotes Emerson and discusses Thoreau's views on self-reliance in her letters. Sophia laughed. I worried you might find that pretentious. Not at all. It was refreshing. He hesitated, then added, May I ask what brought you to answer my advertisement? Your letter spoke of your teaching position in Boston, but little about why you chose to leave it behind. Sophia set down her spoon, debating how much to reveal. My father died 2 years ago. He was a professor at Harvard, but had made some unwise investments. After his death, my mother and I discovered we had very little left. She swallowed hard. Mother went to live with my older sister in Philadelphia. I had my teaching position, but the salary barely covered my room and board. When I saw your advertisement seeking an educated woman to be your wife and help with your business. She shrugged. It seemed practical. Practical, Russell repeated, studying her face. And perhaps a bit adventurous. Sophia smiled despite herself. Perhaps Boston had become stifling. Every corner held memories of what we'd lost. Russell nodded. I understand loss. My parents died of influenza when I was 19. I came west shortly after. I'm sorry, Sophia said softly. It was a long time ago. Russell cleared his throat. Tomorrow, would you like to see the town properly? Without the staring audience? I'd like that. Later, as Sophia prepared for bed in her small room, she found herself reflecting on the day's events. The journey had been exhausting, the welcome humiliating, but Russell Ross was not what she'd feared. He was educated, kind, and considerate, and there was something in his blue eyes that made her pulse quicken in a most improper way. She fell asleep, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the frontier night coyotes calling in the distance, the occasional burst of laughter from the saloon down the street, and the soft creak of Russell moving about in the next room. Morning came with brilliant sunshine streaming through the small window. Sophia woke disoriented before remembering where she was. Tucumcari, New Mexico territory, thousands of miles from everything familiar. She dressed in one of her plainer dresses, a light blue cotton that would be practical for a day of walking, and found Russell already awake, brewing coffee in the small kitchen. Good morning, he greeted her. I hope you slept well. Better than expected, she admitted. Though the coyotes took some getting used to, he chuckled. You'll hardly notice them after a while. Coffee, please. He poured her a cup and added, I need to open the store soon, but I thought we could have breakfast first, then I can show you around town before the midday rush. That sounds lovely. Breakfast was simple but hearty: eggs, bacon, and biscuits that Russell admitted were purchased from the baker down the street. I can manage basic cooking, he explained with a wry smile, but baking is beyond my skills. I'm quite a good baker, Sophia offered. My mother insisted I learn household management despite our circumstances. Then perhaps you'll take pity on me and make biscuits sometime. His smile was warm, and Sophia found herself smiling back. After breakfast, Russell opened the store while Sophia tidied the kitchen. She could hear him greeting customers, his voice friendly but professional. Curious, she peeked through the doorway and watched him weigh sugar for an elderly woman, their conversation flowing easily. He had a natural way with people. She realized no wonder he'd managed to establish himself in this frontier town. When the morning rush slowed, Russell handed the store over to a young man named Thomas. My assistant, he explained to Sophia. He manages when I need to be elsewhere. Ready to see Tucumcari. The town looked different in the morning light, less intimidating, more alive with purpose. Russell pointed out the various establishments: the blacksmith, the livery stable, the small schoolhouse, the church that doubled as a meeting hall. And this, he said, stopping before a modest building with a freshly painted sign, is our newest pride and joy, the Tucumcari Lending Library. Sophia's eyes widened. A lending library in a frontier town. Russell's expression was almost shy. It was my project. Started with my own books, then convinced others to donate. It's small, but growing. May we go inside? The library consisted of one room with shelves lining the walls and a reading table in the center. A middle-aged woman with spectacles looked up from her desk. "Russell," she exclaimed, then noticed Sophia. Her smile faltered slightly. "And this must be your bride, Miss Sophia Harper," Russell introduced formally. "Sophia, this is Mrs. Eleanor Palmer, our volunteer librarian and the doctor's wife." Sophia stepped forward with a genuine smile. "What a wonderful little library, Mrs. Palmer. I was a teacher in Boston before coming west, and I can't tell you how delighted I am to find books here." Mrs. Palmer's expression softened slightly. "You were a teacher. What subjects?" "Literature and basic mathematics for girls aged 12 to 16. "Indeed. We've been looking for someone to assist with our school. We have nearly 30 children now, and poor Miss Thompson is overwhelmed trying to teach all ages." "I would be happy to help if needed," Sophia said, warming to the conversation. "Do you have many classics? I noticed Mr. Ross has a fine collection of Emerson and Thoreau." Mrs. Palmer's eyebrows rose. "You've read Emerson?" "And Dickens, Austen, the Brontes, and as much Shakespeare as I could find," Sophia confirmed. "My father was a professor of literature." For the next 20 minutes, the women discussed books while Russell watched with an approving smile. By the time they left, Mrs. Palmer was significantly warmer, inviting Sophia to the Ladies' Aid Society meeting the following week. "You've made a friend," Russell observed as they continued their walk. "I hope so. Eleanor Palmer is influential in town. Her approval will go a long way." They continued down the street and Russell pointed out various landmarks. The telegraph office vital for business. The newspaper Mr. Jenkins runs it, prints weekly. And the bank, of course. As they passed the bank, a well-dressed man exited and spotted them. "Ross. Just the man I wanted to see." His gaze shifted to Sophia, and his smile turned calculating. "And this must be the mail-order bride we've heard about." Russell's posture stiffened slightly. "Mr. Blackburn, may I present Miss Sophia Harper?" "Sophia, this is Harold Blackburn, president of Tucumcari Bank." "Charmed," Blackburn said, his eyes assessing Sophia in a way that made her uncomfortable. "From Boston, I understand. Quite a change from civilization." "I'm finding Tucumcari has its own unique character," Sophia replied politely. "Indeed it does." Blackburn turned to Russell. "Have you reconsidered my offer, Ross? The deadline approaches." "My answer remains the same, Blackburn. The store isn't for sale." Blackburn's smile tightened. "Pity. With your new responsibilities, I thought you might appreciate a lump sum. A fresh start elsewhere, perhaps." "We're quite content here, thank you." Russell placed a protective hand at Sophia's elbow. "If you'll excuse us, I'm showing Miss Harper the town." As they walked away, Sophia asked quietly, "He wants to buy your store?" Russell's jaw was tight. "For the past year. He's buying up properties all along Main Street, says it's for progress, but I have my doubts." He visibly relaxed his shoulders. "Let's not let Blackburn spoil our morning. The cantina is just ahead. Shall we stop for lemonade?" The cantina was cool and dim after the bright sunshine. A plump woman with a broad smile greeted them warmly. "Russell, and the new señorita, come sit, Mrs. Alvarez," Russell said fondly. "This is Miss Sophia Harper. Sophia, Mrs. Alvarez makes the best food in 3 counties." "Your stew last night was delicious," Sophia told the woman. "Thank you for your kindness." Mrs. Alvarez beamed. "Any friend of Russell is welcome here. You sit. I bring lemonade." They took a table by the window and Russell relaxed visibly. "Mrs. Alvarez was one of the first people to welcome me when I arrived in Tucumcari 6 years ago. She's a treasure. You've built a good life here, Sophia observed. I have tried. He looked at her thoughtfully. I hope you might find happiness here too in time, Mrs. Alvarez brought 2 tall glasses of lemonade and a plate of small pastries. On the house, she insisted when Russell tried to pay. Wedding present. Sophia felt herself blush. We haven't actually. Soon, Mrs. Alvarez said with a wink, patting Sophia's hand before returning to the kitchen. Russell looked embarrassed. I apologize. People tend to assume it's all right, Sophia assured him. We both knew the assumptions we would face. Their eyes met, and Sophia felt a flutter in her chest at the warmth in his gaze. Then the cantina door swung open and a group of cowboys entered noisily, breaking the moment. One of them spotted Russell and called out, Ross, heard your mail-order bride arrived yesterday. Brought her to meet the locals. Russell's expression tightened, but before he could respond, another cowboy approached their table, his gaze fixed on Sophia. Quite a pretty one you got yourself, Ross. If she don't work out for you, let me know. He winked crudely. Russell stood, his movements measured but radiating tension. You'll apologize to the lady, Hank. The cowboy Hank held up his hands with a mocking smile. No offense meant, just making conversation. Your conversation isn't welcome. Apologize or take it outside. The other cowboys fell silent, watching. Hank's smile faded and he sized Russell up, perhaps noticing for the first time the breadth of the storekeeper's shoulders and the steel in his eyes. Meant no disrespect, madam, Hank finally muttered. Welcome to Tucumcari. Thank you, Sophia replied coolly. The cowboys retreated to a table across the room and Russell sat back down. I'm sorry about that, he said quietly. You have nothing to apologize for, Sophia assured him. Thank you for defending my honor. Always, he said simply, and the word carried a weight that made her breath catch. They finished their lemonade and continued their tour of the town. As they walked, more people greeted them, some with genuine warmth, others with barely disguised curiosity. Russell introduced Sophia to everyone, his hand occasionally coming to rest protectively at her elbow or the small of her back. Each touch, though proper, sent a small thrill through her. By the time they returned to the store, the sun was high and the day had grown hot. Thomas was handling a small line of customers and Russell immediately stepped behind the counter to help. I should let you work, Sophia said, suddenly unsure of her place. You're welcome to rest or... Russell hesitated. If you'd like to see how the store operates, you could stay. I meant what I said about wanting a partner in the business. Sophia's heart warmed at his words. I would like that very much. For the next few hours, Sophia observed the store's operations. Russell ran an efficient business, she noted with approval. His prices were fair, his manner professional but friendly, and he seemed to know every customer by name. He extended credit to those who needed it but kept careful records in a ledger. When there was a lull, he showed her the bookkeeping system. It's simple but effective. I record purchases, sales, credit extended, and payments received. Sophia examined the ledger. Your penmanship is excellent. My mother insisted on it. She was a school teacher before she married my father. What did your father do? He owned a small mercantile in Pennsylvania. I grew up in the business, he smiled wryly. Not very exciting, I'm afraid. On the contrary, Sophia said, it explains why you're so good at what you do. The afternoon passed quickly. When Thomas left at 5, Russell showed Sophia how to close the store, counting the till, securing the more valuable merchandise, locking the doors and windows. I usually have a simple supper, and then catch up on correspondence and orders in the evening, Russell explained. But tonight I thought, He looked uncharacteristically nervous. "Mrs. Alvarez invited us for supper at the cantina, a proper welcome for you. Would you like to go?" "That sounds wonderful," Sophia said, touched by the gesture. She changed into her best dress, a deep burgundy with modest lace trim, and found Russell waiting in his best shirt and a clean vest, his hair neatly combed. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you. You look very handsome yourself." He offered his arm, and they walked together to the cantina, which had been transformed with lanterns and flowers. Mrs. Alvarez had outdone herself with a feast of local specialties, spicy stews, fresh tortillas, and dishes Sophia had never encountered in Boston. To Sophia's surprise, several townspeople had been invited, including Mrs. Palmer and her husband the doctor, Sheriff Jenkins and his wife, and even the young schoolteacher, Miss Thompson, who eagerly engaged Sophia in conversation about teaching methods. As the evening progressed, Sophia found herself relaxing. These people were genuinely interested in getting to know her, asking about Boston, her teaching experiences, and her journey west. No one mentioned mail-order bride, and Sophia began to hope that perhaps she might find acceptance in Tucumcari after all. After the meal, Russell excused himself briefly to speak with Dr. Palmer. Mrs. Alvarez took the opportunity to sit beside Sophia. "He is a good man, yes," she said, nodding toward Russell. "He seems to be," Sophia agreed. "Not seems, is." Mrs. Alvarez's expression grew serious. "When the fever came 3 years ago, many children sick, no medicine. Russell rode 3 days to Santa Fe and back to get what was needed. When the Miller family lost their farm to fire, Russell extended credit, no questions. When my Carlos died." Her eyes grew moist. "Russell made sure I kept the cantina." Sophia was deeply moved. "Thank you for telling me this." Mrs. Alvarez patted her hand. "He deserves happiness." "Maybe you bring it, yes." Before Sophia could respond, Russell returned. His eyes found hers across the room, and the warmth in his gaze made her heart flutter. Yes, she thought, perhaps she could bring him happiness and find her own in return. The days that followed fell into a pleasant rhythm. Sophia helped in the store in the mornings, learning the business and beginning to know the customers. In the afternoons, she assisted Miss Thompson at the schoolhouse 3 days a week. The children were curious about the city teacher, but they were eager to learn, and Sophia found herself enjoying teaching again. Russell was everything his letters had promised: intelligent, kind, hardworking, and surprisingly well-read for a frontier shopkeeper. In the evenings, they often played chess or read together in comfortable silence. Sometimes he would read poetry aloud while she sewed, his deep voice giving new dimension to familiar verses. They hadn't discussed marriage since her arrival, and Sophia appreciated his patience. Still, she found herself increasingly drawn to him, his quiet strength, his thoughtfulness, the rare but wonderful smile that transformed his serious face. 2 weeks after her arrival, Russell announced over breakfast that he needed to ride to a nearby ranch to deliver a special order. "Would you like to come along?" he asked. "It's about an hour's ride, and the Thompson Ranch is quite beautiful. Mrs. Thompson has invited us for lunch." Sophia hesitated. "I haven't ridden since I was a girl. I have a gentle mare you could ride, or you could ride double with me if you prefer." The thought of riding pressed against Russell's broad back made her blush. "I'm sure I can manage the mare." Thomas agreed to mind the store, and Russell prepared the horses while Sophia changed into her most practical skirt and boots. When she emerged, Russell was waiting with 2 saddled horses, a sturdy bay gelding for himself and a dappled gray mare for her. "This is Daisy," he said, patting the mare's neck. "She's steady as they come." Getting mounted was somewhat awkward. Sophia hadn't realized how restrictive even her practical skirt would be, but Russell helped her with gentle hands at her waist, and soon they were riding out of town. The landscape beyond Tucumcari was breathtaking, vast expanses of golden grassland backed by distant mesas and mountains. The October air was crisp but not cold, and the sky stretched endlessly blue above them. "It's beautiful," Sophia breathed, relaxing into the mare's steady gait. "Different from Massachusetts, I imagine," Russell said, riding beside her. "Completely. So much space, so much sky. It can be overwhelming at first," he acknowledged. "When I arrived out west, I'd never seen anything like it, felt exposed somehow." "Yes, exactly." She was pleased he understood. "But now I can't imagine being hemmed in by buildings and trees again." He looked out at the horizon. "There's freedom in this landscape, room to breathe, to think, to become who you're meant to be." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, Sophia adjusting to the rhythm of the horse. Occasionally, Russell would point out landmarks or name the distant mountain ranges. The natural ease between them surprised her, as if they'd known each other far longer than 2 weeks. The Thompson Ranch appeared as they crested a small rise, a sprawling adobe house surrounded by outbuildings and corrals. Horses grazed in nearby pastures, and a windmill turned lazily in the breeze. The Thompsons run one of the most successful horse operations in the territory, Russell explained as they approached. "Bill Thompson has a gift for breeding and training." They were greeted by the rancher himself, a weathered man with a handlebar mustache, and his wife Martha, a cheerful woman who immediately ushered Sophia inside while the men unloaded Russell's delivery. "So pleased you could come," Martha said, bringing Sophia lemonade in the cool interior of the house. "We've been eager to meet Russell's bride." "I'm not actually," Sophia began. "Oh, not yet, of course," Martha interrupted with a knowing smile. "But Russell's intention was clear in his letters about you. Never seen him so animated. He wrote to you about me. Not directly, but he mentioned your correspondence to Bill. Said he'd found a remarkable woman who might just be willing to share his life." Martha leaned closer. "Between us, it's the most I've ever heard Russell say about his personal feelings. He's usually so reserved." Sophia didn't know how to respond, but was saved by the arrival of the men. Lunch was a pleasant affair: hearty beef stew, fresh bread, and apple pie that Martha proudly declared was made from their own orchard's first harvest. After the meal, Bill insisted on showing them his prized horses. "Got a new stallion from Kentucky," he told Russell proudly. "Cost me a small fortune, but worth every penny." The stallion was magnificent, 17 hands of gleaming black with a proud arch to his neck. Even Sophia, with her limited knowledge of horses, could appreciate his beauty. "He's extraordinary," she said. Bill beamed. "Lady knows quality when she sees it, Russell. Better hold onto this one." Russell's eyes met Sophia's, and something unspoken passed between them that made her heart race. The moment was broken when Bill moved on to show them the new foals born that spring. As they prepared to leave, Martha pressed a jar of apple preserves into Sophia's hands. "For your new home," she said with a warm smile. "Come back anytime." The ride back to town was quieter, both of them reflecting on the day. As they approached Tucumcari, Russell broke the silence. "I hope you enjoyed yourself today. Very much. The Thompsons are lovely people." "They are," he hesitated. "Martha likely said some things." "About your letters mentioning me," Sophia supplied when he faltered. Russell looked embarrassed. "I may have expressed some anticipation regarding your arrival." "I'm glad," Sophia said softly. "I was nervous too, you know. Wondered if you'd be disappointed when you saw me." He reined his horse to a stop, and Sophia did the same. In the golden afternoon light, his blue eyes were intense as they met hers. Disappointed is the last word I would use, Sophia. You've exceeded every hope I had. The earnestness in his voice made her breath catch. As have you, Russell. He smiled then, that rare, transformative smile that made her heart flip, and they rode the rest of the way into town side by side, shoulders occasionally brushing in a way that felt like promise. That evening, after supper, Russell cleared his throat nervously as Sophia prepared to retire to her room. Sophia, I've been thinking. We've known each other for 2 weeks now, plus the 6 months of correspondence. I don't want to rush you, but I wondered if you'd given any thought to our situation. Sophia's heart quickened. I have. And she met his gaze steadily. I came to Tucumcari to be your wife, Russell. My feelings haven't changed except perhaps to grow stronger now that I've met you in person. Relief washed over his features. Then, would you do me the honor of marrying me? Properly, I mean. Not just because of our arrangement, but because I care for you deeply and hope you might come to care for me too. I already do, Sophia admitted, her cheeks warming. Russell reached for her hand, his touch gentle. Then will you marry me, Sophia Harper? Will you be my wife and partner in all things? Yes, she said simply, I will. His smile was radiant. The circuit preacher comes through next Sunday. Would that be too soon? Or we could wait if you prefer. Next Sunday would be perfect, Sophia assured him, her heart full. Russell brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent a shiver through her. Until then, the news of their impending marriage spread quickly through Tucumcari. To Sophia's surprise, many townspeople seemed genuinely pleased. Mrs. Palmer invited Sophia to tea with several local women to discuss wedding preparations, and Miss Thompson's students presented her with a bouquet of wildflowers and a handmade card signed by the entire class. Even those who had initially been cool toward the mail-order bride seemed to be softening, all except Harold Blackburn, who watched their growing happiness with calculating eyes. 3 days before the wedding, Russell was in the storeroom taking inventory while Sophia minded the counter when Blackburn entered the store. Miss Harper, he greeted her with a tight smile. Working already? Ross doesn't waste time, does he? I enjoy helping, Sophia replied coolly. Is there something I can assist you with today, Mr. Blackburn? Actually, I was hoping for a private word. His gaze flicked toward the storeroom. About your situation. Something in his tone put Sophia on alert. My situation is quite satisfactory, thank you. Blackburn leaned closer across the counter. Is it? A refined Boston lady like yourself, reduced to selling flour and nails in a backwater town, marrying a man you barely know. I know Russell quite well, Mr. Blackburn. Do you? His smile was unpleasant. Did he tell you why he really needed a mail-order bride? Why no local woman would have him? Sophia's spine stiffened. Whatever you're implying, not implying, my dear. Stating fact. Ask around about Russell Ross's first year in Tucumcari. Ask about the incident at Miller's Ranch. There's a reason he keeps to himself, a reason he had to send away for a bride who wouldn't know his past. I think you should leave, Sophia said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Of course. But consider my offer. I'm willing to pay your return fare to Boston, plus a generous stipend. Better to discover the truth now than after the wedding, wouldn't you agree? With a mock bow, Blackburn departed, leaving Sophia shaken. When Russell emerged from the storeroom, he immediately noticed her distress. What's wrong? Was it Blackburn? I thought I heard his voice. Sophia hesitated, then decided on directness. He made insinuations about your past, about something that happened at the Miller Ranch when you first came to Tucumcari. Russell's face paled, and he set down his inventory ledger with careful precision. I see. He was silent for a long moment, then said quietly, I should have told you myself. Told me what? He looked around the store, which was empty of customers. "Not here. Tonight after closing, I'll tell you everything, I promise." The rest of the day passed in tense anticipation. Russell was quieter than usual, his movements measured as if he were preparing himself for something difficult. When they finally closed the store, he led her to the sitting room and gestured for her to sit. "What I'm about to tell you." He began, then stopped, passing a hand over his face. "I've never spoken of this to anyone in Tucumcari. Only Sheriff Jenkins knows the full story." Sophia waited, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "When I first came west, I was angry and reckless after my parents' deaths. I took work where I could find it, ranch hand, freighter, whatever paid. Ended up working at the Miller place, old Sam Miller, not the current family. He was a cruel man, treated his workers like animals, especially the Mexican hands." Russell paced the small room. "There was a young man, Miguel, barely 18. Miller caught him taking extra food, not stealing, just hungry because the rations were so poor. Miller decided to make an example of him, took a bullwhip to the boy in front of everyone." His voice grew tight. "I intervened. There was a struggle. Miller fell and struck his head on a stone. He died instantly." Sophia gasped softly. "Sheriff Jenkins investigated. Witnesses confirmed I was defending the boy, that Miller had been brutal to all his workers. It was ruled self-defense and no charges were filed." Russell finally met her eyes. "But some in town, Blackburn among them, believed I should have hanged. They've never forgotten, never forgiven." "Is that why you wanted a wife from elsewhere?" Sophia asked quietly. "Partly," he admitted. "Local families were hesitant about their daughters associating with me, despite the sheriff's ruling. But more than that, I wanted someone who would see me for who I am now, not for a tragic moment 6 years ago." Sophia rose and crossed to him, taking his hands in hers. "Thank you for telling me. Does it change things between us?" The vulnerability in his eyes made her heart ache. "Only in that I now understand you better," she said firmly. "You defended someone who couldn't defend himself. That speaks to your character, Russell, not against it." The relief in his face was palpable. He squeezed her hands gently. "You are extraordinary, Sophia Harper." "As are you, Russell Ross." In that moment, standing close enough to feel the warmth of him, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right decision in coming to Tucumcari. Sunday arrived, clear and bright, perfect weather for a wedding. Mrs. Palmer and Mrs. Alvarez had helped Sophia prepare, lending her a lace shawl to wear with her best dress and arranging wildflowers for her hair. The small church was filled with townspeople, more than Sophia had expected. She walked down the short aisle alone, her eyes fixed on Russell waiting at the altar. He wore a new suit and had trimmed his hair, but it was the look of wonder on his face as he watched her approach that took her breath away. The circuit preacher, a weathered man with kind eyes, performed a simple ceremony. When Russell spoke his vows, his voice was steady and sure. When Sophia spoke hers, she was surprised by the depth of emotion that welled within her. "I now pronounce you man and wife," the preacher declared. "You may kiss your bride." Russell's kiss was gentle and brief, appropriate for a church full of onlookers, but the promise in his eyes made Sophia flush with anticipation. A celebration followed at the cantina, where Mrs. Alvarez had outdone herself with a feast. The townspeople offered congratulations and gifts, hand-embroidered linens, preserves, a beautiful quilt made by the Ladies' Aid Society. Sheriff Jenkins made a toast to the couple, his words effectively silencing any lingering gossip about Russell's past. Even Hank, the rude cowboy from the cantina, approached to offer awkward congratulations. "You got yourself a good man, madam," he told Sophia. "Stands by his word and his friends, don't mind what anyone else says." By evening, when the last guests departed, Sophia was exhausted but happy. Russell led her home to their home, his hand warm at the small of her back. "Are you tired?" he asked gently as they entered the sitting room. "A little," she admitted. "It was a wonderful day." It was. His blue eyes were tender as they studied her face. "You make a beautiful bride, Mrs. Ross." The new name sent a thrill through her. "I like the sound of that." Russell stepped closer, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. "May I kiss you properly now, without the entire town watching?" Sophia's heart quickened. "I wish you would." His lips met hers, soft at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer, and Sophia found herself melting against him, her hands sliding up to his shoulders. When they finally parted, both were breathing faster. Russell rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you stepped off the stage, coach. Even with the dust and travel wrinkles," she teased softly, "especially then. You looked so brave and determined." He kissed her again, briefly. "I knew in that moment that my letters hadn't done you justice." Later, much later, as they lay together in what was now their bedroom, Russell's arms around her and his steady heartbeat beneath her cheek, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this place. From Boston socialite to impoverished teacher to mail-order bride, and now to wife and partner to a man she was rapidly coming to love. "What are you thinking?" Russell murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That I'm glad I had the courage to answer your advertisement," she said honestly. He tightened his arms around her. "I thank God every day that you did." Life as Mrs. Russell Ross settled into a pleasant routine. Sophia took an active role in the store, introducing new merchandise she thought might appeal to the women of Tucumcari fabrics from back east, hair ribbons, even a selection of books that Mrs. Palmer helped her choose for the more literary-minded customers. She continued helping at the school 2 afternoons a week, finding satisfaction in the children's progress. The townspeople gradually accepted her, no longer the mail-order bride, but simply Mrs. Ross, the storekeeper's capable wife. Russell seemed to thrive with Sophia by his side. His natural reserve softened, and he laughed more easily. The business prospered under their joint management, and they began making plans to expand the store into the vacant building next door. Only Harold Blackburn remained a shadow over their happiness. His determination to acquire Russell's store intensified, and his methods grew less subtle. First came rumors that the Rosses were extending too much credit, risking financial instability. Then a shipment of goods they'd ordered went missing, later found accidentally rerouted to a town 50 miles away. "He won't stop," Russell admitted one evening as they discussed the latest incident, a potential supplier suddenly refusing to work with them after a visit from Blackburn. "Not until he has what he wants." "Which is what, exactly?" Sophia asked. "There must be more to it than just acquiring your store." Russell sighed. "I've been asking myself the same question. The location is good but not exceptional. The business is profitable but not extraordinarily so. Could it be personal? Because of what happened at the Miller Ranch, perhaps, though Blackburn's never struck me as a man to hold a grudge without profit in it." Russell frowned thoughtfully. "There's something we're missing." The answer came unexpectedly a week later when Bill Thompson stopped by the store with news. "Railroad's coming through," he announced without preamble. "Survey crew was at my place yesterday. They're planning a line from Santa Fe to El Paso, and Tucumcari's on the route." Russell and Sophia exchanged a look of sudden understanding. "When did the survey start?" Russell asked. "About 6 months back, I reckon. They've been quiet about it, but word's getting out now." 6 months, Sophia repeated after Bill had left. "Right around the time Blackburn started pressuring you to sell." And right around the time I placed the advertisement for a bride, Russell added. I was so focused on personal matters I missed what was happening. He must have known about the railroad plans, Sophia concluded. That's why he's buying up properties along Main Street. Once the railroad comes, land values will soar. Russell nodded grimly. And my store sits right where they'd likely build the station. The next day, Harold Blackburn entered the store during the quiet afternoon hours. His smile was smug as he approached the counter where Russell was working. Time's running out, Ross. My final offer stands until tomorrow, twice the property's current value. After that, well, he shrugged. Banking can be an unpredictable business. Loans get called in. Credit disappears. Is that a threat, Blackburn? Russell's voice was dangerously calm. A business reality. Think of your new bride. Would be a shame if she had to return east in disgrace when your business fails. Russell's hands clenched on the counter, but before he could respond, Sophia emerged from the storeroom. Mr. Blackburn, she said coolly, how convenient that you're here. I was just reading the territorial statutes regarding insider trading and fraud. Blackburn's smile faltered. I don't know what you mean. No. Then you haven't been using your position at the bank to acquire properties along the proposed railroad route, properties whose owners don't yet know about the coming railroad. His face darkened. You can't prove anything. Perhaps not, Sophia agreed pleasantly. But the territorial governor might be interested enough to investigate, especially given his recent proclamations about railroad development benefiting all citizens, not just the well-connected few. You're bluffing, Blackburn said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. My father corresponded regularly with Governor Sheldon when he was at Harvard, Sophia continued, naming the current territorial governor. Academic circles are quite small, Mr. Blackburn. I wonder what he would think of your business practices. Russell watched this exchange with barely concealed amazement at his wife's cool strategy. Blackburn's face had turned an unhealthy shade of red. This isn't over, he spat, storming toward the door. Oh, I think it is, Sophia called after him. Unless you'd prefer those telegrams to the governor and the Santa Fe Railroad Company to be sent today rather than tomorrow. The door slammed behind him. Russell turned to Sophia with newfound admiration. Governor Sheldon, your father knew him. A mischievous smile played at her lips. Not that I'm aware of, but Blackburn doesn't know that. Russell's laugh started small, then grew until he was leaning against the counter for support. Sophia Ross, you are magnificent. I simply applied what I learned from chess. Anticipate your opponent's moves and plan accordingly. Still chuckling, Russell came around the counter and pulled her into his arms. I do believe my mail-order bride has saved the day. Your wife, she corrected, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. And partner, indeed. His eyes grew serious. I love you, Sophia, more than I ever thought possible. And I love you, she replied simply, the words feeling right and true in her heart. Blackburn made no further attempts to acquire their store. When the railroad plans became public knowledge a month later, the townspeople were abuzz with excitement about Tucumcari's future prosperity. Several approached Russell and Sophia to thank them for standing against Blackburn's schemes, Sheriff Jenkins among them. Town councils voted to restrict railroad development to ensure existing businesses benefit, he informed them proudly. Your stand against Blackburn got people thinking about what kind of community we want to be. As the months passed, Tucumcari grew and changed. The railroad construction brought new people, new opportunities. Russell and Sophia expanded their store as planned, adding a dedicated book section that quickly became Sophia's pride and joy. They hired 2 full-time assistants, and Russell began serving on the town council. Spring brought another change, Sophia's discovery that they would welcome a child by fall. When she shared the news with Russell one evening as they sat on the small porch behind their store, his joy was boundless. "A baby," he said in wonder, his hand gentle on her still flat stomach. "Our child." "Are you happy?" she asked, though his radiant smile had already answered her question. "Beyond words." He drew her into his arms. "You've brought me more happiness than I ever dreamed possible, Sophia Ross. From the moment you stepped off that stagecoach, brave and beautiful despite the whispers and laughter." "I remember what you said that day," she murmured, leaning into his embrace. "They can laugh all they want. You are the only one I need." "And it's still true," he said softly, kissing her hair. "You are all I need, you and now our child." As twilight settled over Tucumcari, painting the distant mesas in gold and purple, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The desperate young woman who had answered a stranger's advertisement, seeking a bride, now seemed like someone from another life, a life she could scarcely remember wanting. Here, in Russell's arms, with the promise of their child growing within her and a community that had become home, Sophia had found something she hadn't even known she was seeking. Not just security or adventure, but a love that had transformed her as surely as she had transformed the quiet shopkeeper who had won her heart. The whispers and laughter of her arrival day were long forgotten, replaced by respect and friendship from the townsfolk who had come to know her. And if occasionally a newcomer raised an eyebrow at the mail-order bride who had married Russell Ross, Sophia merely smiled, secure in the knowledge that some of life's greatest blessings come from the most unexpected beginnings. In October, as the first golden leaves began to fall, Sophia gave birth to a healthy son they named James, after Russell's father. The entire town celebrated, with Mrs. Alvarez preparing special meals, Mrs. Palmer organizing a quilting circle to make baby blankets, and even crusty old Bill Thompson bringing a hand-carved wooden horse as a gift for when the boy's old enough. As Sophia watched Russell hold their son, his expression one of awe and tender love, she knew that answering that advertisement had been the wisest decision of her life. From mail order bride to beloved wife, mother, and respected member of the community, her journey had been unexpected but perfect in its own way. And when, years later, their children would ask how their parents met, Russell would always begin the story the same way. "Your mother was the bravest woman in the West. She traveled 1,000 miles to marry a man she'd never met, and when some folks laughed at her for being a mail-order bride." He would always pause here to look at Sophia with that same special smile she'd first seen on the day of her arrival. "I knew right then that she was the only one I would ever need."